Yeah.
To the cloud.
Yeah. That's what I chose. Okay. So, okay, the recording is starting. So thank you all for coming today. Sorry, I lost my, okay. For this seminar with Dr. José Alberto Lara Pulido. He is the director of the, so it's the Transdisciplinar Center. It's hard for me.
No. Transdisciplinary Center for Sustainability at Ibero.
Okay, I think I can let you introduce yourself shortly for the one who will have not having the time to read the flyer. He's presenting for us a talk entitled Economic Valuation of Ecosystem Services and Social Cost Benefits Analysis in Mexico. And so the floor is yours for 45 minutes. And I will cut my mic, but if anything is going wrong, please tell us. And we will have questions after that for like 10-15 minutes. So the floor is yours.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Loic. Thank you for coming here. Well, as Loic said, I am a faculty professor here at Ibero, which is a private university that is in Mexico City. I'm an economist, and specifically environmental economist, and I have been working on this topic that Loic mentioned about economic valuation and social cost benefit analysis. So I want to show you my recent work, and I hope you find it useful or interesting. So some context, this is not mine, it's just to give in some context of this, of what I'm going to talk about. Maybe you know that in the 90s, there was a very famous paper in Nature written by Constanza and others about the value of the biosphere. So the big picture of the paper was that the biosphere value, economic value, was greater than the total world GDP in that year. So the message was that if you don't care for the nature, you are losing a lot more than the whole production of the world. So this paper began an explosion of studies about economic operations of nature. Obviously, there was a lot of criticism on this work also, specifically about the methodologies employed and the uncertainty about the numbers on economic valuations. These criticisms have been present until today. For some people, just giving economic value for ecosystem services is like commodification of nature. But from my point of view, this is just a piece of information, just another information, a complementary information to build a case in favor of nature. So this phrase is not mine also, but it is also from another paper from Constanza, and it says that to value or not to value that is not the question. The question is we are always taking decisions on nature, on ecosystems, and implicitly we are valuing, we are saying a weight on those decisions. So if we don't have a reference or point of view on the value of ecosystems, then we run the risk of assigning them a zero value on their own detriment. So, well, this is always when I present this to students or another forum, I began by clarifying that my purpose is not to commodificate nature, just to have information to a better decision process making. So what is valuation is to obtain an estimate, monetary or non-monetary, of the value of an ecosystem service, understanding ecosystem service as a function of nature. This picture is just to give some examples about economic valuation could have, it's useful just to communicate to give a magnitude of the importance of some ecosystem services like the carbon capture or the purifying effect of water from the forest or something like that. There are several methods for valuation of ecosystem services, and we have a lot of methods, indirect methods to evaluate, because ecosystem services do not have a market. So we have to get a way to evaluate this, to have a monetary valuation of this, because we don't see the prices of that. We don't see the cost. So that this decade, the scholars have been developing this method. So I will talk about not the methods, but the work that I've been involved in this, in each method. So the easiest method to evaluate nature is to use existing studies on that. I don't know, maybe you are familiar with that, but the United Nations have had an initiative in 2010 on collecting all economic valuation studies in the world and to build a international database on that. That database is available here at this link at ESBD, and there they have an Excel file with thousands of studies and with details of each study and reporting the economic value for certain ecosystem services in some place in the world. We did something similar for Mexico. We have this paper published in Ecosystem Services Journal. We did like this collection of economic valuation studies in Mexico. We have this map about each dot represents a study from Mexico about economic valuation. We analyzed above 100 studies on this, and we built a database. We systematized the information from each paper, and then we did meta-analysis, and well, we found what it is. I don't want to say obvious, but well, we confirmed that, for example, deforestation for agriculture is a bad decision because we are losing more by converting to agriculture, and we give a monetary estimation of that. We have obviously another findings. For example, we found we estimate by how much the value of each ecosystem services changes when there is less area of certain ecosystem. So that is an elasticity. We estimated the elasticity for having less ecosystem. Another method is this. It's a very popular method in recent years. It's a discrete choice experiment that is used to estimate the willingness to pay for an ecosystem service, but also for their attributes. For example, this work, we done field work in the Cozumel Island. I don't know if you know this island in Mexico. It's a big island with like a paradise attributes, and we have they have a reef, a very conserved reef. Well, it's a very nice place. it's not like Cancun. Like Cancun is like very degraded. The Cozumel is somewhat conserved. So we asked tourists about how they value the attributes of the reef, specifically about the biodiversity levels, the visibility levels, and about how they value how much people was in the tour, in the snorkeling tour. So as I said, the method is discrete choice experiment. There is a theoretical model supporting the method. That what we can obtain is how much people value biodiversity, how much value this, how much value this. And a decision card as this, as the one I'm showing, was presented to the interviewers, sorry for the interviews, and they had to choose option A, option B, option C. Each option is associated to a certain level of biodiversity, visibility, or congestion, and they have to pay or not pay at all something to get this level of attributes. For example, if we have high levels of biodiversity, high visibility, a higher fee is needed to get that. So this is presented to the people that we interviewed. We surveyed several times, several combinations of this, and then we get that information in a statistical model, and we obtain these figures. What we found in this case, that tourists are willing to pay a lot on biodiversity and visibility. For example, to get some reference on that, a snorkel tour costs about $100 or $200, and they are willing to pay like another $100 to get this conserve. So the interpretation of this result, in my mind, is that when you are on vacation, we are in paradise, you are willing to pay a lot of money because you are living the experience. So I think that the willingness to pay would change if the interview were after the visit to the place. But well, that is a question that is on my mind. I don't know, but well, the result was that also these results were presented to the companies that operate the snorkeling tours, and as far as I know, they had they were useful for them, you know, to increase, for example, some the price of the tours and use this money to conservation, something like that. As far as I know, it was useful, the kind of data that we get. Another method, maybe you know it, is hedonic pricing, that is explaining the price of real estate as a function of their characteristics. For example, the number of rooms, the size of the building, and the facilities around the area. We have used this methodology several times in the past because we developed an algorithm, a very little algorithm, to scrape data from a website on Reels that sells, that is a point of selling of real estate. And then we scrape that data, and we have done 2 or 3 papers on that. One that is about explaining the price of the buildings based on the distance from that transport. For example, the metro or for the public transport center. What we found is what we expect, that if you are closer to the public transport network, your house increases its value. But in the case of Mexico, the public transport network is not a very good area. It's not because we have a lot of informal activities and such. So the houses very near from there are cheaper than the houses that are near them, but not so close. I don't know if I am clear on that. But well, you prefer to live near the public transport center network, but not so very close. And we have found this also on a measure of integration in the city. There is a concept in architecture that is named space syntax, and it measures how you are integrated to the rest of the city. And we have found also the same, that people in Mexico City prefer to be integrated to the city, but not so close to the big avenue, for example. And that's another finding. And in this paper, that the one that I'm showing, we analyzed the effect of the 2017 earthquake on real estate prices, because this map shows the earthquake zones, the risk zones. For example, here it was a lake several years ago, several centuries ago. So in this belt, there was a lot of damage from the earthquakes. Where you see the dots, we have a collapses of buildings. So we expected to have a decrease in real estate prices near the collapse places, collapse sites. And that was the case. After the earthquake, prices of real estate fell, but it was a temporary effect. The prices returned to their level after 4 or 5 years. So that talks a lot about our memory. I don't know. We forget about these big events. So well, I know that I'm not talking about specifically in this case about environmental issues, but well, it's a methodology that is well adapted to analyze environmental issues. But in our case, I'm presenting this recent work about the earthquake effect, because I think it had some interesting conclusions. Okay, the next method is about avoided costs or increasing productivity that is related to the ecosystems. For example, having a forest near an agriculture patch has more pollination services, for example, or a better climate or something like that. And I am avoiding some costs, for example, on fertilizing my land or something like that, because of having ecosystems near my production center. What we did was an analysis in tourism massive sites like Cancun. Cancun is here, or Acapulco, or these big massive tourist developments. Here is another in Puerto Vallarta. And we analyzed the effect of having natural protected areas near these sites. And we try to explain how many visitors are explained by having these natural areas near. What we found is that 18% of mass tourism is attracted by proximity to natural protected areas. What is the rationale behind this? Well, it's my hypothesis, is that someone in the US is wanting to go to this big site like Cancun, and he compares two different tourist sites, but one of them has the option to go to a natural protected area. I'm not saying that he's going to, but has the option to. So my hypothesis is that this percent of tourists is explained by this option, by having this option. How we did this with secondary data about visitors and about the geographic location of natural protected area, and also on characteristics on these areas. We have to test about or to validate this hypothesis by maybe interviewing people about if it is the case, if they would choose a massive tourist area only by having the option to go into a natural protected area, even if they don't go at final. But well, the secondary data says us that a lot of mass tourism is attracted by this. And well, what is the conclusion of this? Is that we can charge these big hotels to an environmental tax or something like that, a tariff to have money to natural protected areas. I don't know if you know, but in Mexico there is natural protected areas are severely underfunded. And they always are in risk of disappearing, of having deforestation or something like that, just because the public budget is not high enough. So this is a proposal of go with a big hotel because they are having tourists because of the proximity to these natural protected areas. And another study was on the effect of these forests on the production of avocado. Avocado is produced here in this state. The 98% of avocado that you eat at the Super Bowl comes from here. Michoacán, we have a lot of problems here of drugs, deforestation, crime. People is deforesting a lot of tropical and temperate forests in order to plant avocado. And the message that we obtain is that the pollination services that are provided by the forest near crop production is explaining like 77% of the production. What is the message behind? Is that if these forests disappear, the production of avocado would collapse. So the producers have to be aware of this, so to conserve the forests that remain there, because their production is sustained by these services. On that's the main message. Okay, that's all about our papers. I wanted also to present you an online app that I have developed in the recent years on cost-benefit analysis. The economic valuation that I presented is an input for a bigger perspective, that is the cost-benefit analysis. What happens? It is profit it is better to make this or make that in economic terms. And that is a matter of cost-benefit analysis. We identify the benefits and costs of some alternatives, and then we decide which is more profitability. Sorry, is the word I'm missing. I don't know this. Well, it is better in economic terms to do A or B. And this app, we developed this app to help people that are not economists or finance experts to develop this kind of cost-benefit analysis. I will present you this app. It's online, working, it's open, and the app works with an Excel file with a Google Sheets file, in which each row is a cost or benefit or some project. For example, we want to have an eolic, a wind project. So one row is the cost of the infrastructure. The second row is the operation and maintenance cost of the plant. Another row is the sale of energy, and another row is, for example, the avoided carbon dioxide that it is not emitted because of the wind project. So you have to fill the characteristics of each cost or benefit, giving the quantity. The tool allows to do a Monte Carlo experiment that is, well, I will explain this later, but you can register a minimum quantity and maximum quantity of each cost or benefit, and also a minimum price and maximum price of each concept, just a starting date, a final date, and well, what these values are needed for the tool to have the basic information to carry on a cost-benefit analysis. This is a hypothetical example of selling some agriculture product which had some cost, some initial investment, and it permits to reduce carbon, sequester carbon. So this is the same data as I show you this in this file, and this app allows to not have to build an Excel file with the tables, with the formulas of cost-benefit analysis, and just an ordinary people that is not related to economic and financial analysis could develop this kind of analysis. But with what we have here is the net present value or the net benefit of the profitability of this project. It says that in average, this project it has a profit, and also the tool reports variation of this profit based on the minimum and maximum values that I put on the Excel file. So there's a version in English. Well, it's just a translation of this, but it works all the same. And well, we have, it's 11:30. Okay, no, I'm not giving a lot of detail on that, only if you want to, but well, it gives the estimation of the main financial indicators like net present value, like the internal rate of return, like cost benefit index, just indicators that are related to financial analysis. What I do with this app, I give a workshop of about 1 day or 2 days to show all the functionalities. And let me return to my presentation. I use this app, for example, for local governments that need to carry a cost-benefit analysis for their governmental plans. For example, this is the social cost-benefit analysis of the environmental policy in Mexico City. So they have to have a fast analysis on the kind of policies they are supporting, for example, like strengthening recycling in Mexico City, for example, fostering solar heating or such. So for each measure, there is a cost-benefit analysis carried on. This analysis is based on secondary data. So it's like a fast analysis, a first look of the profitability of these measures. This app facilitates this kind of analysis because you need time, you need information, you need a lot of work to do this. And this app makes possible to have this information relatively fast. So what you are looking in this graph is the cost benefit index, that is how much I obtain for each dollar I invest in each measure. For example, what we find is that building a cyclist infrastructure in Mexico City is it has a very high profit. For each dollar I put there, I obtain more than $100, and they come from not from direct benefits, monetary benefits, but from social benefits like health, like environmental, for example, for reducing emissions and such. That is the economic valuation put in a cost-benefit analysis, a cost-benefit analysis. So there is a link. I'm trying to say there is a link from the economic valuation studies to that cost-benefit analysis, because if we don't consider these social benefits, these monetary benefits from environmental, from the ecosystems, if we don't account for them, so some measures of some projects would be only cost. They would not be shown as a public investment. So I hope I've been clear on this. Sorry if not. And well, that's it. Well, just a recognition of the limits of economic valuation. Valuation is just a piece of information to build an economic case in favor of nature. There are another non-monetary methods such as participatory deliberation, criteria analysis, which complement monetary valuation. I mean, economic valuation is not the answer to in the sector of environment. People like biologists or something, at first, some decades ago, they were very reticent about economic valuation. After that, they convinced themselves that economic valuation was useful, but they went to the other opposite, thinking that economic valuation would be enough to defend nature. That is not the case. It's just another piece of information. And valuation has scope and limitations, but it helps us to make nature visible and hopefully make better decisions. So that's it. I think that I have like 3 minutes, but I prefer to get 3 minutes sooner.
It's perfect. Thank you very much. Congrats. As usual, I will let the online audience tell us if they have some questions first, and then we will go on to the in-person people. So if some of you want to ask a question, I think you can raise your hand or just open your mic. We'll see if somebody wants. Apparently not. Paul, do you have questions? I have two, so
I have plenty. So people can take
I think
can you hear me?
Yeah, go on.
So my first question would be just if on the last slide you were talking about the multi-criteria analysis and what goes beyond purely monetary valuation. Can you just slightly develop what type of criteria exist in such valuation and the advantage and the drawback in terms of feasibility of implementation of those different factors? Because I guess in the end, monetary valuation is the one which matters from what I understood and the one which is the most listened to. But can you develop a bit on this, the issue with multi-criteria analysis and the advantages we could have with it?
Yeah, sure. I've been involved actually in a project with the GIC, which is the German Cooperation Agency in Mexico, about developing a prioritization methodology of public policy, and is based on a multi-criteria analysis in which one of the criteria is the economic analysis. So they have a manual in this about this. Well, I think that you know which how is the multi-criteria analysis. You know, you have a group of people that defines the criteria that are important to them. They assign some weighting on each criteria, and they assign a value for each alternative, and then we weight these values assigned for each project, for each criteria, and you have a measure of the qualitative importance for that group for each alternative. No? I think that it works very fine if you have a very well-represented group, and when in this group, everyone has the same level of agency or have the same power to show their desires. Because in this kind of groups, there is always someone that talks more and or is more charismatic and has a better understanding of the topics. And so the other people just is shy or don't, well, sometimes people have strong ideas, strong statements, but they prefer to write them, for example, or they prefer to show them in another ways. So in multi-criteria analysis, from my point of view, works if you facilitate well the group and the tools that permit to obtain the opinions of people. Because if it is not the case, the result of the multi-criteria analysis would be the desires of the one that talks more or is more charismatic. So it's I think the process is the more important. I think that also multi-criteria analysis complement the economic analysis when you have dimensions that are impossible to value sometimes because you don't have the information, for example. For example, the social cohesion. I don't know if it is the right translation. Like social, I don't know, did you help me? Let me look for the correct translation. Yeah, like the benefit from sticking together, from the people being together. It's very hard to value from a monetary point of view, but it's valuable because it has potential to generate benefits. So in those cases, I think you have to complement the economic analysis with this kind of tools. And I also think that an analysis is very valuable, for example, from qualitative information that come from focus groups and such, because they have a story behind that data. So I advocate for mixed methods from the quantitative method, but complemented by the qualitative methods. That's my point of view. I think that at some point, both methods would be merged because we are looking this right now with the data science because they have qualitative information that is processed by some algorithm that is converted so this qualitative information in some quantitative data. So I think that in some decades we will have we will not have a division between quantitative and qualitative because we will develop these tools that permit us to process our speech language into objective measures. I think, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe we will be always have some degree of subjective motivations that I don't know. I'm just thinking. But well, answering you, I think that works. The multi-criteria works, but the process is important.
Thank you.
Do you have another question?
I have another question I was wondering about is when we do those valuations, so we give to the environment a monetary value, which is an instant monetary value. For example, something which really shocked me personal level was how the COVID crisis and lockdowns in different countries has changed the perception and the valuation of nature. Because when people realized that they were stuck at home, the tree in front of a house became very valuable. And we are in a deep age of very fast, tremendous change of the environment. And my guess, which is naive, but still a guess, is that as the nature will be destroyed through the process we're in, we are going to evaluate more and more any marginal piece of nature. However, when we look at the estimation for the moment, it is not the case. So we are underestimating the value because we just have a marginal perception of it, and we have this kind of mark-to-market approach, which is highly distorting and, from my point of view, underestimating the value of nature.
Yeah, you are right, and there is a very deep limitation of economic valuation. We have just a photograph of one instant of time, and that value changes in time and changes geographically. That the old saying that a tree falls when nobody is there, that it sounds or not sounds. economic valuation methods are intrinsically centered in human. So the value depends, as you said, if the tree is in the front of my home, it has a very higher value than it is somewhere in the forest. But I think that we don't know that very well the complex systems of in ecology. So you don't know what impacts would have the plastic at the center of the oceans in the whole world. So economic valuation is not ready to answer those questions because the nature of economic valuation is just a fragment, just to explain a fragment of reality. For example, say how much the value would change if it is in front of you or it's there. But conceptualization the tree as a fragment of reality. But the reality in some ways is complex. So economic it's not giving the whole answer, just a partial answer. And I think that if we reconcile with that and we are fine with that, we can use economics for supporting some decisions. For example, if you continue to deforestate, as I showed in Michoacan, if you continue to deforestate the forest, eventually the crop production of avocado would collapse. So that is someone that economics can explain us, but we can't explain some impacts that are very complex, and we need biologists and we need ecologists to complement our answer. I don't know if your question was related to what I was answering.
Absolutely. So we're trying to do like invite the biologists into the discussion in order to have direct modelization of the ecosystem, but we know how tough it is and how difficult those type of modelization. So I'm thankful, especially like that type of approach can exist. That's my worry is that if given those methods, we are evaluating the environment, but if at the same time we know that we underestimate the value, we might make people think that we give a correct estimation and lessen the environmental problem because the value we give to nature, which is an explicit value, in that case is underestimated. Whereas if we were not giving any value, we would just say we don't know. We just put the curve of the evolution of the diversity. But we make people believe that it's not a default. It's just that we give an answer that we know imperfect, which might be under to a question they're asking, and how could we give an answer much more representing of the value it could have after.
Yeah, there is always a risk to giving some values to make a statement. If I said a mangrove has a value of, I don't know, $1 million per hectare per year, then the President Trump comes to Cozumel and says, give me all the mangrove sectors because I have enough money, because I want to build some hotels and get more money from that 1 million. So it is important to contextualize the value, as you said. If you have less and less and less and less ecosystem, this value will increase to infinity. So you have to be clear about in which context you are giving the value, how much this value would change dynamically, and for what purpose? Because at the other side, I don't know, that if a company wants to deforest that mangrove for some purpose, would use also the information for their own benefits. So they will tend to show you that this mangrove is not useful at all, and use your money figures to show that. To again, you need to build a case in which the economic value is just a piece. Then you need the biologists that need to explain that if you affect the ecosystem, I don't know, maybe chaotic or not, maybe you can deforest this piece of mangrove and just compensate somewhere near, but you need to another disciplines to answer this. I know to choose a value is to have an statement, but sometimes you need to, and you need to know the risk of doing that.
Yeah.
So as I said, it's worth, as you said also, it's worth if you don't have this value, because then it values zero. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, and I get that if you say to the mayor of a city that his nature is inestimable and has an infinite value, he will say, yeah, whatever, give me a good economist who can evaluate it and do the real project. So like it's needed in the political debates. So I guess it's the best we can do given the constraints in terms of manpower, scientific accessibility of knowledge, and and an important element for the discussion. The fear is not having roots in non-economic science and in complex systems. I'm always worried about the shortcoming of that monetary evaluation, and right, I'm not sure I see any alternatives. I think it's like I always see danger in doing that, but I guess it's the best thing we can do for the moment.
Yeah, and also I think that it depends on the objective of your study. For example, in Cozumel, it's just to get information about how much you can increase the price of the tours in order to fund the natural protected area office. So I think that the objective is well, now you have the will to have more money for the natural protected area office, and the economic valuation is useful to give some estimation of the amount. So you are not selling the reef, you are just getting how much you can charge to the tour. So it depends also. I think that at one extreme, the economic valuation could be very risky, but in certain contexts, it is very useful to answer pragmatical questions that you have.
Do you have questions?
Okay.
I have one last one. It's very precise. On your study on willingness to pay for ecosystem services, from what I understood during the presentation, it was mainly tourists who answered the questions. Is that it?
Yeah, the Cozumel, right?
Yeah,
Cozumel case. It was.
I think, yeah, whereas I was scuba diving, yes. I was wondering if there was a difference if you do the same study of the willingness to pay for the protection of these ecosystems to local people compared to tourists.
We did that in another place, in Puerto Vallarta. We did another discrete choice experiment by valuing the scenic beauty of the hills, because they have a forest in the hill that can be looked from the beach. So we asked tourists about that, yeah, and also about the hydrological services of this forest. And we also asked local people on that, and we obtained two different evaluations because tourists value scenic beauty and local people value hydrological services. And well, there is a difference. In Cozumel, we didn't do that, but I presume the local people in Cozumel has very strong relationships with their land because it's an island. There are a few people. They are very strong in their relationships, and they see the cruiser companies as a threat because they only arrive, throw a lot of trash in the island, and then go, and no money goes to the island just for the cruiser company. But well, the local people is very strong on that, and I would guess that the valuation on the reef would be more higher than the tourists.
Okay, that's interesting.
Sorry, higher. Yeah. Okay.
You have 2 minutes.
On this point, I'm sorry, I'm a bit monopolizing. How do you see it in a? So the thing is, there is a ponderation through the income of the person who is estimating, because like if someone is very rich, he will be more eager to pay a lot because it doesn't represent him a lot. But like, for example, for tourists usually when they're in an ecosystem, they just want the shiniest thing because they're not staying for a long time. And having this type of ponderation is unjust for the local people because it underestimates what they believe or what is really at the core of the ecosystem rather than the shiny things on the side. Protecting, like if we just protect the scuba diving sites, we're protecting it for tourists, but the forest next to the village is not protected much because there is a lot of difference of income between the locals and the tourists.
Yeah, sure. The income, we collect the income data and we included that in the model. Okay. Evidently, when income rises, the willingness to pay tends to rise. That's a finding in all our results. There is an interesting finding that is that I would guess before that people from other countries, because of having more income, would be willing to pay more for the reef, but that is not the case. In Mexico, I don't know if it's like a national sentiment or something like that, but consistently I find that they are willing to pay slightly more than people from other countries. So I think that is adjusting for income. So, well, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I would think that was not the case, but it is. But the income, yes, it increases the willingness to pay.
Okay, I'm sorry, but it's time. Thank you very, very much for this talk. It was super interesting. Are you agree to share your slides? Or?
Sure.
Okay. So I will tell you once it will be online on our website, there will be the recording and I think a link to the slides for the people who are interested. Thank you very much for coming and for your presentation. See you soon, all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.